left in the African village, Masa couldn't stop thinking about Zanger and the love they shared. She held the note tightly against her heart, whispering silent prayers for his safety and the success of the mission. All around the village, her parents and neighbors gathered in hushed circles, their voices low with worry, wondering what the days ahead would bring. Masa walked the narrow path she and Zanger had once traveled countless times, the dry leaves crackling under her feet. The forest was quiet except for the occasional call of a bird or rustle of wind. Her heart was heavy, weighed down by memory. Every step brought her closer to the sacred baobab tree where Zanger would sing lullabies in his warm, earthy voice. He used to call her his moon, his light in the dark. After every song, he would lean in and kiss her forehead, whispering, "Each Libyan ditch." Now, only silence greeted her. She leaned against the thick trunk of the baobab and closed her eyes, letting the memory of his voice wash her. That was when she heard it, a sudden, sharp rustling in the nearby bush. Her body stiffened. Her breath caught in her throat. The forest around her grew still, as if holding its breath. Then, through the shadows, limped a white wolf. Its fur was matted with blood, and its gait was uneven. A strange sound came from its throat, a growl, but something between a moan and a plea. Masa's instinct screamed for her to run, but something in the wolf's eyes stopped her. There was pain, yes, but also trust. She slowly removed her scarf, her fingers trembling slightly, and approached the wolf. "Sh," she whispered, gently kneeling before it. She wrapped the scarf around its leg and cleaned the wound as best she could. But the wolf was not finished. With a quiet nod of its head, it turned and began to limp into the thick undergrowth. Masa hesitated only a second before following. Whatever this was, it was bigger than her. She felt it in her bones. They walked for what felt like hours through the brush, the light dimming until the forest glowed only with the final hues of dusk. Then ahead, she saw them. A pack of wolves. Silent. Watching. Several lay sprawled on the ground, their sides rising and falling with labored breaths. Arrows jutted from their bodies, blood staining the forest floor.
Masa gasped and pressed her hand to her mouth. Rage blared in her chest, but sorrow overpowered it. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. She darted into the woods, searching for the right leaves, the right barks, the roots her grandmother once showed her. With arms full of natural medicine, she returned and went to work. She knelt by each wolf, whispering words of comfort as she pulled out the arrows, ground leaves against stone, and mixed salves. She moved with quiet urgency, every movement filled with purpose. The wolves watched her, some with pain, others with awe. The white wolf stood by her side the entire time. When she finally sat back, exhausted, she noticed the stars overhead. Night had fallen. The forest was dark, but suddenly a warm glow flickered near her hands. She looked up. The wolves had brought her fire rocks and dry thatch. One even pushed a pile of twigs toward her. Masa smiled softly, lit the fire, and let its warmth seep into her bones. Then her stomach rumbled. She glanced at the wolves. They needed food too, but she had nothing. No pot, no tools. She sighed and said aloud, "I need to cook something, but there's nothing to cook in. Your pack needs to eat." The white wolf tilted its head, then turned and disappeared into the darkness. Moments later, it returned, holding a metal pot by the handle in its mouth. Masa blinked in surprise. "Where did you?" She followed the wolf's path and soon found a hidden clearing. Scattered across the grass were bags, tools, dried food, and cooking supplies. Her heart sank as the pieces came together. This was the work of poachers. The wolves had been ambushed, but they fought back. The hunters fled, leaving behind their spoils. Masa gathered what she needed and hurried back. That night, under the stars and beside the fire, Masa cooked a simple stew. She fed the wolves one by one, the injured and the watchful alike. None growled, none snapped. They accepted her as if they knew she was not just a healer, but something more. She thought of Zanger then, how he had always believed the forest held spirits, that animals could speak if you listened hard enough. Now she believed it too. From that night on, Masa returned to the forest each day. She brought herbs, salves, food, and stories. Tazay stood silently at the edge of the camp, his eyes scanning the darkening horizon. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing the weight of responsibility that had settled on his shoulders. His men, loyal and sharp, moved like shadows through the camp, their ears tuned to every rustle in the bush. They knew J-Boy was coming. It wasn't a matter of if, but when. Zanger approached him again, this time with a bowl of steaming rice and roasted plantains. "You need to eat," Zanger urged. "You'll need your strength." Tazay shook his head. "Not until the people are safe. Not until we deal with J-Boy." Zanger sighed and sat beside him, watching the fire. The villagers were quiet now, many of them asleep, their bodies exhausted from days of fleeing. Some of the children clung to their mothers, still too frightened to close their eyes. Meanwhile, miles away, J-Boy crouched in the shadows of a broken-down shack, sharpening a blade with slow, deliberate strokes. His eyes burned with intensity, a fire lit by years of pain. He had grown into a tall, muscular man with scars that told a story of street fights, betrayal, and survival. His face was cold, hardened by rejection and the cruel lessons Tonji had drilled into him. Tonji had molded J-Boy into something dangerous. Under his mentorship, J-Boy learned how to manipulate, threaten, and kill. He became a ghost in the criminal underworld, unpredictable and merciless. But even Tonji, in time, feared what he had created. J-Boy had surpassed him in violence and ambition. J-Boy could not accept defeat, so he gathered more men from other areas and pursued his once hostages. And his mind fixated on Tazay. Back at the camp, Tazay gathered his lieutenants, men and women who had followed him through countless battles. "We're not just protecting ourselves," Tazay said, his voice low but steady. "We're protecting the idea that we still matter, that our people have the right to live without fear." The group nodded. They weren't just soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, parents, ordinary people who had become warriors because they had no other choice. That night, as the stars blanketed the sky, a distant howl echoed through the trees. Birds scattered. The men signaled to Tazay because J-Boy had returned. The night was thick with silence. Even the crickets seemed to hush as the forest waited, holding its breath. Tazay stood with his spear in hand, scanning the darkness. He could feel it in his bones. J-Boy was nearby. The air was too still. The shadows are too deep. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the night. Then came the chaos. From the trees, flaming arrows rained down like a storm. Screams tore through the camp as villagers scattered. The bush, once their refuge, had become a battlefield. Tazay shouted, "Get the children and elders to the creek." Zanger, flank left. He sprinted toward the heart of the fire, dodging falling branches and smoke. His men rallied, forming a loose circle around the women and children. Spears were raised, shields locked. Then came the real terror, J-Boy's men. They moved like shadows, painted in ash and leaves, emerging from the trees with machetes and clubs. They struck fast and without mercy. And behind them, walking calmly through the smoke like death himself, came J-Boy, dressed in black rags and leather. His eyes glowed with hate. He carried no shield, only a curved blade with jagged edges. His face bore no emotion, only focus. He locked eyes with Tazay from across the chaos. "Tazay," he roared, "come face me, or I'll burn this entire forest." Tazay stepped forward, chest heaving. "Why are you doing this? These are innocent people." "Innocent?" J-Boy spat. "No one is innocent. Where were they when I slept in gutters? When I begged for food? You think your people are better than me?" Tazay didn't answer. He gripped his spear and rushed forward. They clashed like thunder. J-Boy was fast, too fast. He ducked the spear and slashed at Tazay's shoulder. Blood sprayed. But Tazay spun, elbowed him in the jaw, and landed a knee to his ribs. The two men fought savagely, fists and weapons colliding in a blur. Around them, the camp burned. Villagers fought back, some with sticks, others with bare hands. Zanger led a counterattack, striking J-Boy's men from behind. Slowly, they began to push the attackers back. But J-Boy wasn't done. He reached into his coat and pulled out a grenade, a relic from an old warlord. "No more speeches," he said, grinning through bloodied teeth. Tazay's eyes widened. "No." He lunged, grabbing J-Boy's wrist just as the pin came loose. They tumbled to the ground. Boom! The explosion lit up the night. Trees snapped. Dirt flew. Smoke choked the air.
Silence fell again. When the dust cleared, J-Boy was gone, vanished into the bush. Tazay stood strong, shielded by a thick tree root that had absorbed most of the blast. Zanger found him and lifted him up. "He escaped," he said, grim. Tazay nodded, grimacing. "But he'll be back. And next time, we'll be ready." The group rested, and the next morning they continued their journey, sorrowful and silent. Tears rolled down their faces as they walked along a narrow, winding path. As their tears fell to the ground, the path seemed to cry along with them. Even the birds and animals mourned, their cries echoing softly through the forest. Tazay walked ahead, bearing the weight of leadership. But he turned and lifted his voice to comfort them, saying, "Our God is great in everything. He has protected us from our enemies and has made them flee despite their fierce battles against us. Though our tears flow from our eyes to the earth, He will wipe them away because of His deep love for us. Give thanks. Appreciate Him, for He will lead us home and grant us peace." Masa jolted awake. The sun was already high. Panic gripped her chest as she sprang to her feet and dashed into the forest, heading straight for the clearing where the white wolf pack usually gathered. But the area was empty. Her heart pounded with worry. Clutching her spear tightly, she moved through the dense brush with the grace and focus of a warrior. Reaching a quiet creek, Masa knelt to drink. Just as her fingers touched the cool water, a rustle from the bushes made her spin around. Standing tall and calm was the white wolf. A gasp escaped her lips before she rushed forward, wrapping her arms around its neck. Relief washed over her as she kissed its face. Then, one by one, the rest of the pack emerged from the trees surrounding the riverbank. Masa looked in awe, but she never let go of the white wolf. With tears in her eyes, she began to speak, recounting the danger they had faced, how Tazay had gone to rescue Zanger, and how no word had returned. Her voice cracked with sorrow and fear. Suddenly, the white wolf howled into the sky, and the entire pack responded in unison, their cries echoing through the forest like a promise. Masa stood tall and began walking through the forest, her hand resting gently on the white wolf's back as he led the way. The forest whispered around them, leaves rustling in the wind, birds taking flight, and shadows shifting with every step. Suddenly, the black wolf came charging through the underbrush, his paws skidding to a halt in front of them. He turned to the white wolf and spoke in a low, urgent voice. "There is word from the northern pack," he said. "J-Boy is marching toward Masa town. His rage is fierce, and he means to destroy everything. If we are to help, we must go there, but first we must pass by the seer. She is waiting for us." The white wolf turned to look at Masa. Their eyes met, and in that silent gaze, she understood. Without another word, he moved ahead, taking the lead once more. Masa followed, her stride quickening, determination rising in her chest. They traveled for hours. The sky dimmed slightly as clouds moved across the sun. The forest thickened, vines and tall grass closing in until they reached a grove of thinly plaited palm trees. There in the clearing sat a woman on a carved wooden stool. She was radiant, young in appearance, yet ancient in presence. Her eyes shimmered with the calm of oceans, and her face bore no lines, yet wisdom clung to her like a cloak. The white wolf approached her gently, lowering his head into her lap. She stroked him with quiet affection, and though her lips did not move, it felt as if they were speaking, mind to mind, spirit to spirit. After a long silence, the woman finally looked up at Masa and spoke, her voice smooth and heavy with meaning. "Masa," she said softly, "you saved my children, and for that, I thank you." She gestured to a mat beside her. "Come, sit with me. I must tell you what lies ahead." Masa obeyed, sitting cross-legged on the mat, her eyes fixed on the seers. "J-Boy is coming," the seer said. "His heart is fire and his hands are destruction. You must stand and fight beside Mazi and the others. Your strength will be tested, but you are not alone." She paused, her gaze deepening. "As for Zanger," she sighed, "he will return. His heart will reach for yours, but it will not remain. He will be drawn away by new voices, new faces. If he chooses to leave, let him. If you try to hold him against his truth, he will hurt you deeply. Not with his fists, but with his words. With silence, with blame." Masa's breath caught, but she said nothing. "No matter how much love you offer, it will never feel enough to him," the seer continued. "He will change, not by life, but by pride. In time, he will see his mistakes. But when that day comes, forgive him. And do not take him back because he won't know how to love and respect you again. If you do, you will lose yourself. Release him now, or bitterness and dishonor will consume your spirit." She reached into a small gourd beside her and pulled out a strand of glowing brown and gold beads threaded on a leather cord. "Wear this on your wrist," she said, placing it in Masa's palm. "It will give you strength when your own begins to fade. It will remind you who you are, even when love tries to confuse you." The seer stood, her presence towering though she remained calm and still. "Go now. Go quickly." Masa rose, her hand clutching the sacred bracelet. She looked once more at the white wolf, who nodded in silent understanding. Without another word, she turned and began to walk toward the unknown, her spirit bracing for battle, and her heart was slowly learning to let go. Masa loved Zanger from the depths of her soul. Every breath, every heartbeat whispered his name. The thought of life without him clawed at her spirit. Yet, the voice of the seer echoed louder in her mind, like wind through a hollow tree. "You must fight." Her heart, shattered, aching, knew no peace. Still, she wiped away her tears, straightened her back, and chose resolved over despair. If this was the path laid before her, then she would walk it, blade in hand, faith in heart. With a low growl, the white wolf turned to lead the way. The pack moved like shadows, silent and focused. Masa followed close behind, every step a war between love and duty. The forest around them thickened, the wind picking up as if sensing what was to come. They reached the edge of the village just as the sun dipped low, casting long, golden fingers over the land. It was here the trap would be set, an ambush for J-Boy, and his men. Masa glanced to the horizon, praying Zanger would survive the storm that approached. For if love could not save them, then courage must. Will, the captain of Tazay's warriors and leader of the advance team, came running toward him, nearly out of breath. J-Boy is heading toward the village of Masa, he gasped. He's moving to destroy it. At his current pace, he'll reach the town in 3 days. A heavy silence fell over the camp. Then, without warning, the parrot, Tazay's trusted messenger, took flight, its wings cutting through the still air. Tazay lifted his head, eyes filled with concern. 10 minutes later, the parrot returned, circling once before landing on Tazay's arm. It carried a small note and spoke in the familiar voice of Tuan, the old seer. The white wolf has intervened, and Masa is with him. At the sound of her name, Zanger's heart leapt. A surge of hope rushed through him. His love for Masa was renewed like a flame reignited, and at that moment, he could not wait to see his queen again. Tazay quickly divided his team. He sent his fiercest warriors ahead to Masa's village, while the rest remained to guard the path and protect the people. Word spread through the camp like wind through dry grass. The people began to pray for strength, for guidance, for divine mercy, as they walked the narrow road toward home. Their tears fell to the earth like rain, and nature seemed to weep with them. The air grew still. Even the birds were silent. Then suddenly, the bushes began to shake violently. Tazay and his men gripped their swords and dropped into formation, bracing for whatever would emerge. Out of the thicket burst a massive, fierce white wolf, its fur glistening, a scarf tied around its neck. Before anyone could speak, thousands of white wolves poured silently from the forest, encircling the warriors in a great, breathing wall of fur and power. One wolf, larger than the rest, walked straight to Zanger. It paused, lifted its head, and let out a deep, resounding howl. In response, several wolves moved into position, forming a circle around him. Zanger froze, breath caught in his chest. His heart pounded with uncertainty and awe. Then, like a sign from the heavens, the parrot flew in from above and landed gently on his shoulder. It spoke one word. Masa. Zanger blinked, and for the first time in days, he smiled. His eyes locked with the white wolf, the one wearing the scarf, and he understood. The scarf was hers. Zanger reached out slowly. The wolf did not flinch. His fingers closed around the cloth and lifted it gently from the creature's neck. He held it close to his face, inhaling the faint trace of her scent. A wave of emotion surged through him. His love for Masa overtook him like a rising tide. His soul yearned for her. And in that moment, as the forest stood still, as the warriors held their breath, and the wolves watched in silence, Zanger remembered. He remembered every promise he made to her, as he walked her home that evening. Masa and the white wolves moved swiftly toward the village, her steps urgent, her voice rising in her native warrior tongue. She began to shout, words of battle, honor, and fire. As she neared the village gates, the people heard her cry. One voice became many. The villagers picked up the chant, and soon the entire town thundered with a powerful war cry that echoed through the valley. The warriors gathered, forming ranks, their eyes set and hearts steady. Suddenly, a flash of lightning tore through the sky, and from the light, Tuan emerged, cloaked in battle armor, surrounded by her elite guard. They had come to fight J-Boy, and they knew this could be the last stand. But they were ready. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the battlefield. A sign of favor. A sign of hope. Tuan's warriors surrounded the town in a precise formation, strategically deploying their advance team beyond the outskirts. A moment later, J-Boy's forces thundered in from the north, a swarm of horsemen, their weapons raised, their chants dark and guttural. Then it began. Tuan's soldiers spotted JBOY and launched the first wave of attack. The battle was immediately brutal. But it was a trap. J-Boy had sent his men not only from the north, but from every direction. The town was hit from the north, east, west, and south, each front exploding into chaos. Amid the whirlwind of steel and flame, Masa stood tall. She fought with fury and fire, but in her heart, she knew this could be her end. But her love for Zanger burned too fiercely to surrender. Even in the face of death, her heart remained unyielding. J-Boy forces was too great for the village and Tuan warriors. As she wielded her powers, JBOY counteracted it by another force named Telma. She was so wicked that she saw nothing good. Telma had a twin sister named Tufa. She were referred to as the Twin of Evil. As they casted their spells, Tuan broke it out, yet more men were needed. Tuan called for Tazay while casting her last spell for help. Tazay and his men arrived just in time, and the fierceness shook the ground until the animals in the forest feared. Tazay fought with J-Boy instantly. They fought with every night that their secret was revealed, one that chilled Masa to her core. One of the twins of evil was secretly channeling strength to J-Boy. She sat on a wooden stool, her head bowed, whispering dark, wicked incantations under her breath. Masa crept forward, slow and silent. But just as she raised her blade, the white wolf stepped in her path, growling low. It shook its fur and pulled a green leaf from the pouch around its neck. Gently, it handed it to Masa. She took the leaf, placed it on her tongue, and chewed. Power surged through her veins. Her arms grew steady, her breathing slowed. Her rage focused. The white wolf lunged first, knocking the evil twin, Tufa, off her stool with a ferocious strike. Masa charged, her eyes blazing. With a scream of righteous fury, she ripped the charms and amulets from around Tufa's neck, tearing the power from her broken body. Tufa writhed helplessly, crippled, wicked, and now powerless. At that exact moment, J-Boy staggered, clutching his chest. The dark strength he once commanded vanished. Tazay saw his opening. He stepped forward, raised his fist, and landed a brutal left hook that dropped J-Boy to the ground. He couldn't move. His power is gone, Tazay declared. Tie him. Cage him. Now, his warriors moved swiftly, binding J-Boy in heavy ropes and dragging him toward the iron cage prepared in advance. J-Boy's men watched in horror. Their leader defeated. But before they could retreat, Tazay's forces surrounded them. From the flanks came the women warriors, weapons raised, hearts fierce. They charged without hesitation, fierce as flame and fast as wind, leaving the enemy with nowhere to run. Within minutes, J-Boy's warriors surrendered, and the fighting ceased. A wave of relief swept through the town as the people erupted in joy, singing and embracing one another. Masa, overwhelmed with hope, began pushing through the crowd, calling out, "Zanger! Zanger!" But there was no answer. She searched every corner, her voice rising with urgency. "Zanger, where are you?" Still, no sign of him. The crowd quieted. Then, one by one, the people began to echo her cry. "Zanger, Zanger," but he was nowhere to be found. Masa stopped. Her strength came out beneath her. She collapsed to the ground, and wept bitterly, her cries piercing the silent morning. Taizé searched too, but his heart sank as the truth settled in. He hung his head in grief and slowly walked over to Tuan, his eyes filled with silent questions. Tuan paused, her face grave. Telma, the evil twin. She took him, she said quietly. But the white wolf will bring him back. This is beyond my power now. Only the wolves can go where he's been taken. She then walked to Masa, gently lifting her from the earth and wrapping her in a comforting embrace. As Masa sobbed against Tuan's shoulder, the elder whispered something in her ear. Masa's body stilled. The tears stopped, and though her eyes were red, a strange peace settled over her face. Around them, the people rejoiced, once more grateful for victory and the promise of Zanger's return. Exhausted, they sat where they stood and drifted off to sleep beneath the open sky. Some remained awake, cooking warm food. Others kept watch, spears in hand, eyes still alert. By sunrise, the village stirred again. Survivors began to clean the remnants of battle, share meals, and comfort one another. Tuan, silent but strong, gathered her warriors. It was time for the next journey. Days passed, and joy filled the air. The village square came alive with celebration as the people dressed in their finest garments. From among the crowd entered the sons of Noah. One of them, named Tembo, raised his voice and declared, "People of our land, the sun shines brighter today, and our hearts overflow with joy, for our God has delivered us from the tyranny of J-Boy and his wickedness. But our journey is not yet complete. Zanger has been taken, and our brave warriors on a mission to bring him back. Let us lift our voices in prayer and give thanks to our neighbors Tuan, Taizé, and the noble white wolves." With that, Tembo returned to his seat to thunderous applause. The village erupted in celebration, drums echoing through the hills. But in her room, Masa wept. Her heart ached for Zanger, and with tears streaming down her face, she cried herself to sleep. Meanwhile, in the depths of the forest, the evil twin had tied Zanger to a tree. She stirred a dark potion in her cauldron, her eyes gleaming with cruel intent. As she approached Zanger to force the brew down his throat, the white wolves closed in silently through the brush. Just as Zanger resisted the potion, the wolves sprang into action. They tore through the coven, scattering the twins' followers in all directions. The cauldron toppled, the potion spilling. Only a few drops slipped past Zanger's lips, which he quickly spat out as he gasped for breath. The wolves slashed through the bush ropes binding him, and Zanger collapsed to the ground. 3 wolves shielded his body as he regained strength. Slowly, Zanger rose to his feet, breath heavy, heart pounding. Then, without a word, the wolves darted forward, swift and silent. Zanger followed, running with all his might, side by side with the white wolves, deeper into the forest and away from the grip of evil. The white wolves led Zanger to the edge of the village. With slow, steady steps, he began walking toward the heart of the celebration. As villagers caught sight of him, a wave of recognition swept through the crowd. Shouts of his name rang out. Joy erupted as people ran to him, surrounding him with cheers and praises to God. A young boy, wide-eyed with excitement, dashed to Masa's room and whispered through her window, "Zanger is here." Masa bolted from her bed and raced toward the town square. As she neared the gathering, the villagers, sensing something sacred in the moment, gently parted to clear her path. There, in the center, stood Zanger. He turned, his eyes lighting up as he saw her. With a warm smile, he opened his arms wide. Masa ran into them, and the two embraced tightly. Tears streamed down their faces as they held each other, hearts speaking what words could not. The village roared with joy. When the test finally slowed, Zanger cupped Masa's face in his hand, his voice tender and full of longing. "My love," he whispered, "I missed you so much."